Joining us now is congressional candidate for New Jersey's 5th District, Arati Kreibich. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you are primarying a Democratic representative in that district. Gothamer is his name, Josh Gothamer to be specific. And I wanted to ask you, what is it about his representation in Congress that you disagree with, and how would you be different?
How much time do you have?
Well, there's quite a bit. Just to note, he's part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is code for I'm going to go ahead and help Donald Trump, and he's one of the more conservative Democrats. But I wanted you to share some of the details on that and be a little more specific.
No, absolutely. Look, in 2016, I was really happy as a constituent in NJ5 because we had a glimmer of hope when we flipped the 5th and Josh was elected. I was a supporter. I helped him get elected. And I thought he was really going to be helping us fight against what was happening at the national level. And turns out that has been farther from the truth, right? He's one of the most conservative Democrats. He can't even say Trump's name or call him out for any of the things that he has done. He's never done that so far. He is one of the handful of Democrats who voted for the border wall funding from his very first vote, where he voted to roll back Obama regulations that protect our health and safety and the environment. I knew that there was something of an issue with him, but he's gone back from there to voting for the border wall funding, to wanting to gut and voting to roll back Dodd-Frank regulations, which really, considering that we in New Jersey haven't even fully recovered from the financial crisis, this is egregious, right?
So I actually want to focus a little more on the border wall funding because to be quite honest with you, that particular weakness by congressional Democrats got under my skin like you wouldn't believe, because at that moment, there was a huge debate happening in the country about what Trump was doing at the border with these detention facilities. So children are in cages, and you have Nancy Pelosi fighting tooth and nail to get congressional Democrats to vote in favor of $4.6 billion in funding for Trump's border wall. Now, did that funding come with any type of safeguards for the migrant children being held in those cages?
No, and that was the most egregious thing, right? So we had, in June of 2019, we had just seen all the news reports that talked about not only that we were separating families, that we have kids in cages, but also that we weren't giving them toothbrushes or blankets. So we had all of these news reports that came out about the horrible conditions that we were keeping these kids in. And then a couple weeks later, this particular bill comes up, and not only does he, what he did was he whipped up votes to make sure that there were no guardrails and that there was no accountability that was baked into the bill that Nancy Pelosi brought forward in the House. So he worked against and he undermined our interests at that point. To me, this is one of the worst examples of political expediency that I've seen. And in terms of really looking at this from a humanitarian crisis and looking at what we owe to those kids, we owe a lot more than what was happening there. And when he did that, he made me, as a constituent of NJ5, morally complicit in that decision making. And I don't know anybody who wants to be morally complicit in the methods that he showed there.
Now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi fights very aggressively against progressive lawmakers. When it came to the debate about that border wall funding, she was ready and willing to throw people like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez under a bus during an interview with the New York Times. And so, you really do have to fight her, even though she's in your party. And how would you plan on doing that if you were elected into Congress?
So for me, look, she's a strong woman, and I appreciate that and I understand that. But really for us, what we need to do is we need to stand up for things that are morally right and fair. We need to come out and talk about what we need to do to make sure that what we are doing is equitable, what we're doing is fair, what we're doing is not transactional, right? At the end of the day, politics and governing is not I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's what we're doing for the greater good. So for me, those are the things that I'm going to be standing on, regardless of who says what.
So let's talk a little bit about money in politics. So you discussed how Gothamer is very much in favor of repealing or at least weakening Dodd-Frank, which was, in my opinion, a relatively weak regulation in response to the 2008 financial crisis. Look, money in politics plays a huge role in politicians deciding to attack that regulation. Are you in any way influenced by money in politics? Are you taking big donors?
No. I'm not taking any money from corporate PACs. I'm not taking money from fossil fuel companies. I believe that we have an outsized influence of corporate money in government today. And that's exactly why the policies and the kinds of things that we really need to happen are not happening, right? And I think that what we need to do is reduce that influence and, if possible, eliminate it. So one of the things that I actually think we need to do is really talk about the amendment to end Citizens United. I think when Citizens United came on board, it was one of the worst things that could have happened to our political system. My opponent, Josh Gottheimer, he's number 2, I think, behind Kevin McCarthy for the amount of money he gets from the Wall Street real estate finance sector. Less than 1% of his donations are from small dollar donations, $200 or less. And that's really not what this is about. He is called the human fundraising machine. And clearly when you have a nickname like that, you are not beholden to your constituents, you're beholden to the corporate donors. And I want to be beholden to my constituents and to the people. So I like to say that his campaign is about power and money, and my campaign is about people and the planet.
So let's talk a little more about Gothamer's style and tone, because I think that's relevant to this campaign as well. So Gothamer allegedly beat the hell out of a car when a reporter for a community paper refused to hand over his notes on a town hall to Gothamer's staff. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I wasn't there. So all I've seen and heard about this is from the news reports that you've seen. Look, I think what we need are people who, again, are going to be fighting for the right thing and not fighting our constituents, who are going to be standing up for what's right and not doing like what he did today, where there are reports that talk about how instead of actually standing up for the articles of impeachment as we need to, that came out today, he was floating the option of censure in the House, as if that's going to do anything, as if everybody in their right mind understands that Trump is not going to be swayed by censure at all, and clearly that the articles of impeachment are needed and necessary to stand against the kinds of corruption that's happening. So really what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have representatives that are passionate about fighting on behalf of the constituents and upholding the Constitution and upholding our democracy.
There's so many political issues to be concerned about. I mean, our healthcare system is broken. Immigration is something that has been neglected, and we need real comprehensive immigration reform. Our environment is really in peril right now. Which issue are you hyper-focused on? I know that you can't be hyper-focused on every single one. So out of all the political issues right now, what really speaks to your heart? What do you want to tackle first?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 2 things. One is climate change, right? So we had the IPCC report that came out last year that told us we had less than a decade to course correct. And we know, I'm a scientist, I'm trained as a scientist, and looking at these reports and looking at all the reports that have come since, it's clear that those estimates are conservative. I live in New Jersey. New Jersey is one of the most vulnerable states to climate change. We are the third fastest warming state in the United States. Clearly, we need to do something about this as soon as possible. We need to course correct as soon as possible before it's too late for us. What we need is a Green New Deal that is going to have clean, renewable energy, that is going to cut our fossil fuel consumption substantially, that is also going to give us a boost to our economy and good new jobs. We need all of that to come forward, right? So as a council member in Glen Rock in the last 2 years, we have done substantial improvements. So the default in our town for our residents now is up to 100% renewable energy, and residents can opt out if they want. We have banned plastic bags. We have EV charging stations that have been fully functional for 2 years. So what that has taught me in the last couple of years is that when you have the right elected leaders who are actually going to be fighting for the right things, you can make a significant positive impact in a short amount of time. So imagine if we can do that in Glen Rock, in a small town, the scale at which we can do that in a congressional district and on the national level. But clearly, we're not going to be able to do it in a piecemeal fashion, right? So what I'm passionate about, what I think we really need to come together on is climate change. And I think that's something that everybody, whether you're a Democrat, unaffiliated Republican, across the board can come together on. And that's one of the first things that I'll be fighting for.
All right. Arati Kreibich, please check out her website, artiforcongress.com/volunteer if you're interested in volunteering, or artiforcongress.com to learn more about her campaign and to donate. Thank you so much for taking the time to have the conversation with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.